welcome back to the Pin Podcast. I'm your host, Pinup Miami, and at the Pin Podcast, we talk about modern topics with a vintage flair. And today's episode is going to be a little catch up on my life, recapping and prepping for a new chapter in the Pin Podcast. So, if it is your first time listening, I hope you stick around. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for sticking through and listening, and your support means the world to me. So I truly appreciate it. And if you haven't followed the podcast on Instagram, please follow it at the Pinned Podcast Official. You can also text me any questions, comments, concerns to the hotline for the podcast, which is 1-833-48-PINUP. And today I have a shout out, because you could also send me shout outs via text. And today's shout out comes from Cassandra. She wants to give a shout out to her boyfriend. His name is Christian. He is in the military and he's currently stationed in Japan. And she just wants Christian to know that she loves him and misses him. And isn't that cute? I think it's adorable. And Christian, you know, if you're listening to the podcast, Cassandra's an incredible woman, and I can't wait till you guys get back together again, and I hope everything is well. And today, talking about reunions, and today when you're watching this episode, it is going to be National Chocolate Day, so I have a sweet guest on today that you guys have seen before. We have Vivian in the house.
Hey,
what's up, Vivian?
Hello.
You like that intro, huh?
I do. I like it. You need to go with me everywhere.
Oh yeah, hype. Yeah, today. Well, today is National Chocolate Day, and I don't really like chocolate. I know a lot of people think, they think like chubby. I know this is stereotypical, but they think chubby likes chocolate. I really don't like chocolate. I do eat it, but it's not my fave. Do you like chocolate?
I do like chocolate. I'm not a very big sweets person, but I love chocolate. Mm-hmm. And if you pair it with peanut butter, that's my favorite thing in the world.
You got a Reese's peanut butter cup.
Yeah, those are good. But you do like my chocolate brownies. When I make brownies, you like those.
Yeah, she made brownies once for a photo shoot, and I don't like brownies. But when I ate those, they were delicious. So yes, I guess I do like chocolate, but I only like Vivian chocolates, apparently.
Because I put love in there.
The extra love. And how you been? Long time since you've been on the podcast.
I know. I'm happy to be back. You keep asking me to come back, and I'm like, do people really want to listen to me?
Yes,
but I'm happy to be here.
I think it's because we're like the keeping it real.
Yeah.
Keeping it real together.
What is the Thelma and Louise of the podcast world?
Yeah, keep it a little consistent, I know 2 episodes ago I talked about, my new journey in life and like my new job and the new path, and that's why, my content has been a little, trying to realign myself, but it's nice to have you on here because it gives me a little like comfort to know that, I have somebody else on the other side,
Well, tell us about it. Tell us about those changes. What's going on in Pinup Miami world?
Ooh, well, since the last time I've been able to get back to hosting events, the world is slowly opening up and it's kind of weird, but
it does feel weird. Like the few times I've been out, it's like, should we? It just feels like we got so used to being inside in the bubble that it's hard to get back to reality.
You know what it feels like? It feels like, when you're dating someone, this is going to be like TMI, I guess. No, I've seen memes about this, but I've heard, when you start dating somebody, like at first it's like the honeymoon stage, and you guys are very lovey-dovey. You guys know exactly, you're trying to like make sure you like impress your partner.
Yeah.
And then you get to the stage that you're like getting more comfortable, and then you're wondering like, then there's like an awkward stage because you're wondering like, is it okay if I burp in front of him? That's what I'm getting at with this. We're at that stage in the US that's like, what do I do? Do I wear my mask? Do I not? Do I fart in front of him? Like, it's
exactly. That's exactly what it's like.
That's the only way I could like relate, because I want to be safe. I'm vaccinated, But you also don't want to be like seen as a douchebag for not wearing your mask. It can't just be like me feeling that way.
No, it's true. I mean, I'm vaccinated too, and I had COVID, so I have like double the.
You had it twice.
I had it twice. I have like triple the antibodies. But part of it is like PTSD that I'm so scared of getting it a third time. But it's also like I don't know, like it's scary, you know, and it feels awkward. It's true what you say. Even though I'm vaccinated and stuff, sometimes I'm like, should I take off my mask? I mean, we live in Florida. It's really hot, so wearing the mask is a pain because it gets hot. My glasses get foggy and stuff. But it's true. Sometimes it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, the first
Pinup, taking it off.
The first Pinup contest I hosted this year after such a long time was in Jacksonville. In Jacksonville. And me and my boyfriend drove up to St. Augustine, and I was shocked when we got out of the car because people were looking at us weird that we were not wearing our mask when like everyone was like normal. Like I felt like we went back in time. It was so awkward. And then I hosted an event there, and it was a car show, so I knew it was going to be fine because it's like open outdoors. And then the following weekend after that, I went to Tampa to host the second contest, and it was at the Ink the Bay, and it was at the Tampa Convention Center. And again, going off the trust of if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. But nobody there wore a mask. But I still practice the social distancing and making sure, you know, it's nice to be like in your own bubble and nobody popping it. So that's something that at least in COVID, I've learned that I enjoy people not in my bubble.
I saw a guy wearing a t-shirt the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, I need that t-shirt. It said, even if COVID is over, stay 6 feet away or I'll throat punch you. Oh, and I thought that was so funny. I was like, I need that shirt.
That'd be cute in like a little poodle skirt style. And then you just swing up the skirt. Be like, stay 6 feet away or I punch you.
6 feet away or I'll throat punch you.
Yeah, you know, you get comfortable like when you're little pre-COVID, when you go to Disney World, if you've been to Disney World, you know, everyone would stand in line, and even though the line isn't moving, everyone's like so close to each other. Like, bro, the line is not moving. Why are you getting so close to me? And I've heard stories that Disney is like slowly going back to like pre-COVID times, and I'm like, why? Like, I really enjoyed like seeing that people had the space in between. Like, you're not gonna go anywhere. Why do you gotta be in other people's space?
Because there's people that don't have any like personal space and they have no boundaries. So like at the grocery store, they'll walk up and stand like really close to you. So that's really annoying. I like the space, having the space. Leave me alone. Go over there.
So when people stand close to you in the grocery store, do you say anything?
I don't say anything, but I'll like move around, or I'll like put my cart, kind of move it strategically, or
like get out.
Yeah, or like I'll make a face or something. But I don't think I've ever told anyone anything.
Like, bro, move. How would you nicely say that? I don't know. You'd be like, no, I'm sorry.
Can you give me some space, please? Step away.
Then they think you're mean.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everything has like a double meaning on everything. Like, if you tell people, oh, let me have some space very nicely, they'll be like, oh, hey, she's so rude. She doesn't want people around her.
Well, you know, you're entitled to your personal space, especially if it's a stranger. Like, I don't want a stranger all up in my business.
Well, you recently traveled outside of Florida to see your sister, right, in Virginia. Mm-hmm. How was the flight?
The flight was packed. It was like pre-COVID times.
You still have to wear your
completely
your mask
full mask, but yes, in the airport and on the flight, you have to have your mask on at all times. And they said it a few times throughout the flight, just as a reminder. And I think everybody pretty much complied. Yeah, it wasn't bad. But in Virginia, it was interesting because all the places that I went to, they, like stores and restaurants and stuff, they had signs that said, if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. But how do you know who's vaccinated and who's not? So
the trust system.
And I saw very few people wearing masks, at least in the area that I was at. So
it's funny because legally you can't ask people to tell you if they're vaccinated. Like at a job cannot ask you, are you vaccinated? Right?
Yeah.
If would have understood.
I don't know if in a job. Yeah, I think you can. I'm not sure about that. But I know like when you go places, they're not supposed to ask you. But that's kind of like the catch-22. Like, how do you know if someone's vaccinated? You have to go on the honor system, but what if it's just an anti-masker? It's one of those things that you have to. That's why I like the space. Stay away from me. You don't wear your mask, go over there.
Even when masks were mandatory, people wouldn't wear.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, and a lot of the people that don't want to wear masks are the same people that are anti-vax. So you gotta watch for yourself.
Yeah. As much as you want to take care of others, you also have to think about yourself. But yeah, and then to go back to your question, I took that all around.
Yes, we got off topic. I want to know what's been going on with you.
No, but also in those topics, I talked about the events. I finally hosted the first pinup contest in like a year and a half, and it felt amazing. It was a great car show. It was one of the first events I've ever done. So it was at the Callahan Cruisers in Jacksonville. It's a wonderful car club, and they host me every year for the last year doesn't count, but the last 4 years. So it would have been 5 years last year, then 6 years this year, but always a lot of fun to be there. And the Tampa Convention Center was different. I love tattoo shows because you see a crowd of people that just love being themselves, and I it's a whole different crowd, and I like being in like every type of crowd. So I love the mix of like one weekend I was in Jacksonville, it was very car centric, rockabilly, and then you got Tampa, which is more alternative tattoos, but yet the pinup girls that show up, they're all different as well. So it's just like I just love the eclectic mix of everything. And then after that, I went to Orlando because started the Pinned Central Florida meetup. So I run these meetups in South Florida, Pinned Central Florida, pinnedsouthflorida.com. If you're in South Florida and you want to find people that like love vintage retro style, I have a meetup that I organized to make events that we all want to go to, but it's not available in our community. And I started a chapter with two ladies up in Orlando, Carrie and Marcy. And it was their first event, and they had a lemonade social. It was so cute. It sucked that it was raining because it's like hurricane. Like right now we're recording this and a hurricane is happening on the west coast of Florida. Well, a tropical storm, Elsa, I guess Elsa just wanted to go to Disney.
She did.
I've been loving all the Elsa memes for the hurricane.
Yes, they're great.
It's like, I feel like it was done on purpose. Maybe not. But it was pretty awesome. But the event, it was raining, but there was a good turnout. So many different people from other different groups came to support. And I met a lot of new people, and I saw a lot of familiar faces. So it was truly a wonderful day, and I can't wait to see that meetup grow and have different events. They're planning a roller skating social, and I'm going to have them on the podcast. So I'm going to have Carrie and Marcy one day on the podcast to talk more about it. But it was so, and it's also humbling for me as well, because when I started Pin South Florida,
you started this. This is all your baby. This is amazing.
Yeah, I thought, that thought kept coming in my head that weekend when I was there, because not only did I go to the Central Florida event, but I went with people that I met through the meetups I've done in South Florida. So it was like a mix of emotions that weekend. Just to know that I wasn't alone, because I always felt so alone in the way that I viewed the world and I dressed and what I liked. So being able to bring people together, create friendships, and see other communities like Pin Tampa, Pin Central Florida start their thing and do it with their own flair. I'm very like, let them do what they want, because they're providing a need that community and people that feel that way have. And I really love the people that reached out to me, and they're really supportive in having the same visions I have, but also putting their flair in it. Does that make sense?
Of course. But yeah, it's so amazing. I remember when I found the first event on the meetups, and I went. It was a baking event, and I got there and I looked around and I was like, I found my people. These are my people.
Yeah, your first
And it
event
was
was
so
a
great
baking.
to find like a group of women that's, supportive and like-minded, and we all like the vintage and retro, styles and such, and it's amazing. And you started it. You did that. So yay, you deserve a lot of kudos for that.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
it's a
grown so much. I'm so proud of that because
yes.
it really has grown.
Yeah. And I feel like the reason it's grown is because I let people also build on top of what's built, if that makes sense. For example, like the events in South Florida now, since there's people that have come a lot, I'll get suggestions and they want to get involved and I let them do it. I try to be more of like really community based. Is that a word? Like community based?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I really like, because that way you feel the passion in every event. Like the picnic, the first event that we had in South Florida was the picnic, and that was not my idea. That was a couple of girls from Bernie, BB, Sarah, like a couple of girls in South Florida that I told them if they want to do it, get together, and I helped out, and I keep, it was a team effort. But I like to let them, if they have the idea, bring it into fruition, and it really creates, like, you could feel like the passion and all the little cheese
Yeah,
sticks,
that's
all the
that sense of
decorations.
community and sisterhood.
Yeah,
It's very nice.
so I like it.
Good job, Jennifer.
Hi. But yeah, thank you so much for the kind words.
It's true, and that's how we met, and we became great
Yeah,
friends. So it's
yeah.
awesome.
Then you leave to Virginia, and I miss you. What is that?
Just a few days. You need a break from me once in a while.
Mm. Yeah.
So what's next? What you started hosting again, which, as a sidebar, if anyone has an event that they would like an awesome host for, hit up Miami, because she's amazing. And this is
Aw.
really like her baby, and she just blossoms, and you just kind of well, I guess like that, like you just blossom when you're hosting and you're at an event. I love watching you in action. I think you're great.
Oh, it's
But what's next? What's next for Pinup Miami?
what's next is I'm gonna really try to focus on, with this new change in my life, I've been trying to schedule everything. I had a different time before, now I got to switch it up, and that's the hardest thing is time management. Because I feel like we have a lot of all we have in this life is, I'm gonna get so philosophical now.
Go for it. Go for it. I like this.
But like, no, but seriously, if you think about it, like all we really have in this life is time. At the end of the day, you can strip away money and stuff, but it's time. So the time that you focus on things is, you're literally one day closer to death, if that makes sense. Like every minute you're closer to death. So it's like an exchange of time for what you're doing. So there's so much I want to do, but I have to make sure that I started with this new job. I realized really quick that I couldn't do things the way I was doing it before, because I was getting overworked, and then I was getting tired, and then I was feeling like
You burn
exhausted.
out.
Burnout, that's the word I'm looking
Yeah,
for.
you burn out.
But then you also don't want to be with like, oh, well, I need to do this. But it's literally time management. So I'm taking this time, and I know with the podcast there's been a little pause now and then, because it's trying to reset. And as I've mentioned before on this podcast, like this podcast has really pulled me through in the last year. It's really something I've come to love from the listeners and everyone that messages me, and the support that I've gotten is incredible. So I really want to allocate time to the stuff I'm passionate about, but I also need to make a living. But I also am trying to, the new mindset with this new job is knowing that like, this is just a job. It'll pay the bills, and I'll work hard for my hustle and my passion. And I want to make more dresses. I would love to make commission dresses. So it's just knowing what valuable time we have left and putting it exactly where it needs to be to make everything work.
Right.
And that's the process that I'm in.
Well, I think that's something that all creators kind of struggle with, because you just said it, like you need to make a living. You got to pay your bills, right?
Yes.
But it's not something that has your 100% your heart and soul into it. So it's really hard finding that balance between, the job that pays your bills, and then the time after work where, you actually focus on something that you love and that's your passion. It's a hard balance.
Yeah, and you need to work hard if you want something. Like, everything that I do is not easy. It looks easy. I'm sure, like, a piece of art takes, like, time to plan out, because you're an artist. Somebody that does anything, you need to plan it out. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes, and then all viewers get to see is, like, the final product. And it's just I'm like torn with the words and I'm trying to come up with it. But you're right. It's like, it's difficult. But what I was going to say, I remember now, is that the one piece of advice that I give to people is, they just have to keep going. There's many mistakes I've made, but it's about trying, because no time is wasted if you learn from it. So if I make a mistake, you learn from it and move on. And at the end of the day, you don't drown in your own sweat. So if you're passionate in something, you're not going to worry about it. If you're passionate about it, that's just like a metaphor. No, I don't mean literally sweating. But I don't mind working hard for myself. That's why a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like, are successful, because they're not worried about struggling. You always got to struggle. But if you're struggling with a cause, aka your own sweat, you're not going to drown in it because you're passionate about it.
Right.
You just have to know how to make it work for you. So yeah, there you go. That is my tip for myself. It's so
important to not give up when there's something that you really love and that's your dream and your passion. Even you can remind me of these same words later on when I feel like I'm giving up, because I go through that too. But it's so important to like keep feeding your dreams and not giving up on them, no matter how hard it is. Even if you're not making any money on your art or your talent or whatever it might be, is just kind of continue feeding that passion, because that really keeps us going.
Yeah, think about it this way. This is all full of I'm also saying this stuff out loud for myself as well, because sometimes
we need to hear ourselves. Yes,
yeah, sometimes when I'm alone, it's like you don't remind yourself, and if it helps somebody in the process, I'm also there for it. But think about it this way, Vivian. When you want a mango tree, right? Because we're in South Florida, or an avocado tree, and you want a big tree in your house, right? And you keep thinking about it. If you keep thinking about it, you're never going to have a tree. So, but if you had a seed and you plant it, if you planted it today, you'll have it in the future. But if you be thinking about it and you plant it planting it in the future, it's never going to grow to become an avocado. And then your time gets shorter. So basically saying do it now and you'll get the fruits of your labor in the future, or keep thinking about it and just holding on to the seed, and it's going to be too late for it to bloom.
Right.
I mean, technically it's never too late, but you get the the metaphor there. So that's why when I think of things that take a long time, like when I purchased my house, I was thinking, man, a 30-year loan. You think about that, like you're going to pay this thing off for 30 years, or a car, whatever, pay off how many years. But then down the line, you think, oh, now I got only 10 years. It starts getting easier and easier, but it wouldn't get easier if you didn't put the first thing down.
It's true.
So that's why when I ever find a hard situation, I always make sure to be like, okay, what can I do now that I don't want to do? But if I do it, it's going to help.
And sometimes, taking the baby steps, doing little things towards your dream really helps. Yeah. And I'm an overthinker. I overthink everything. So the more I think about something, like you said, you're thinking about your dream, or you're thinking about, I start to psych myself out. So I have to try to stop that and kind of act, instead of continuing that hamster wheel of constantly thinking, and then you drive yourself crazy.
You just got to do it. And if you fail, you got to learn from that fail. And, I used to be scared of failing. I'm an overthinker. I mean, if you know me, I overthink everything. But it's about just trying whatever you're thinking. Like the podcast, perfect example. I put off the podcast for a while. I wanted to start it earlier than what I started, but I was overthinking it in that hamster wheel you're talking about. And I kept thinking,
we psych ourselves out with that.
I've never done it. I don't have the equipment. But then I was like, okay, look, I ain't no pro. I don't know how to edit audio. I know a video. I know this. I don't have a camera. But then I woke up one day and I thought about what I that's when I came across that quote about the plant. And I realized, well, you know what? I'm going to start with my phone. So I started with my phone. The only thing I bought was like this microphone, and I had lights that someone gifted me for Christmas, and I set it up, and it worked. I mean, if you look at my past podcasts, you'll see the setup is different. I had friends that helped me out, like Jesse made me the telephones for the cover and this poster. If you're watching on YouTube, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you. but yeah, it all started with the camera and one mic and a mixer. Because apparently, if you have, because I didn't even have a computer, I just was using my phone, deleting every picture I had there because I was using all the memory to do one video. I had to do it with people in my house because I didn't know how to like do like more than 2 people. But I learned that really quick with Zoom. But then I ended up like borrowing an old laptop that kept freezing. So it's see all these things that happen behind the scenes, but I worked really hard in learning like different steps. And every video I truly try to like up it up and like put a new thing that I learned. So it's like
literally you do, because every week I'm like, wait, is that a new camera? Is that a new light? What?
Is that a new curtain?
It sounds better this week than it did last week. What did she do?
Yeah,
every week is an improvement.
Yeah, and that's how I and it's like it's perfect how you said it. If you don't try, you will never know. You could just sit there and then you'll be like in a wheelchair. Not a wheelchair, like a retirement home. What do you call that? A rocking chair? A rocking chair. And you'll be like, oh, I wish I would have done TikTok. I hear a lot of people that want to do TikTok, and I tell them just grab the phone and record whatever. And it's and I love TikTok because you could be crazy, you could be funny, you could be yourself. Like it's such a great platform, but people are scared to get on. I'm like, just do it and just try and you'll love it.
Well, I used to think that TikTok was like for teenagers. That's like when it first came out, I was like, is that like a teenager thing? I was like a very young thing. And then like during the pandemic, my niece started going on TikTok. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in there just to spy on her and see what she's up to. And I really like it. There's a lot of educational things on there, which is surprising, but there are, like, I love to bake and cook, and there are a ton of recipes, and there's like something for everyone. So
and you have ASMR.
Yeah, there's really something for everyone. There's all sorts of different things on there.
And it's great and it's such a huge platform that it even, like this last weekend, the owner of Instagram went live, and he
I saw that.
He made a statement that clearly stating that TikTok is a competitor and that they're going to start pushing videos in e-commerce. So it's interesting how, competition is good and bad depending on how you look at it. I think it's great because it keeps Instagram on their toes and trying to always improve.
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me of a story. It's not random, but it reminds me of a story of Disney World. Disney World, they did the same thing for years, and then Universal opened, next door to Disney. And I believe if it wasn't for Universal opening so close to Disney, like they wouldn't have pushed so much in trying new things and doing, because competition does help, but to some extent to push you to the next level. And that's why when like I hear people say, oh, but they're doing it or they're copying me, be like, okay, if they're copying you, then time to switch it up and try something new. That's how in my head it is. Or well,
they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So if someone's copying you, you must be doing something right, because
but then that also pushes you. It also
pushes you exactly to do better and do something different.
Yeah, it pushes me when I see somebody that or when I see a dress that somebody like made, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna try to do it, but I'm gonna do it my way, like this, like this, like this. Or I entered a pinup contest, be like, okay, well, they did this different than I did. Let me implement this, not this. Let me switch it up. What I like, don't like. With events that I host, I go to a lot of events, not only rockabilly events, a lot of blogging events, and I incorporate a lot of the things I learn from other events into mine, and vice versa. Like I just feel like it's such a wonderful time because you get to explore many different venues, in events and type of people, and we're around so many different people a day that it's nice to incorporate and learn and do better.
Absolutely.
I think people are scared to say that, they want to try their hardest. But it's not copying, or if you're doing it with intentions of wanting to improve yourself,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a problem.
Nothing wrong with a little friendly competition. Now it's different if somebody like blatantly copies what you have done and try to pass it off as their own. That's something different. But someone that's taking inspiration, or you taking inspiration from someone else, I mean, it's 2021. What can anyone do today that hasn't been done before? It's some way,
True.
So you're going to have inspiration from everywhere, but it's about making it your own and really using your own creativity and just letting that kind of spark it, but not focus on copying it,
Look how many people bake.
That's right.
Is that going to stop Fulano from wanting to own their own bake shop? No, it's just a tougher market, but I'm sure, you have your own twist. There's a lot of people that make cookies, but then there's a girl that does like great portraits on cookies, or specialty in chocolate cookies, or, it's all so different, but the same at the same time. Yes, that's the best way.
Yes, absolutely.
And there was an audio you sent me from TikTok once that said, just because everyone else is doing it, it doesn't mean that you can't have your own twist to it.
Right.
And that's, that was super interesting to hear, because you think, oh, I like sewing. Everyone is sewing. Or, I make resin jewelry. Well, then do it, because it's going to be different. And time always shapes who you are too. Like the same, if you start a resin company today, the person that started 10 years ago has way more experience and is going to keep doing their thing. But if you're just starting out, it's like, don't compare yourself to those people either, because they've had experience,
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what I did with my podcast. I kept comparing it to, like, if I start, I'm going to have to look like this one, all equipment, all this, perfect pixels, perfect everything. But the reality is they've done it for many years. I'm sure their first podcast was, on a cell phone like mine. And I even had guests. I had Besame, Gabriela from Besame Cosmetics. Now looking back, I'm like a little embarrassed, but then at the same time I'm not, because that's what I knew and I thought I was great at what I've learned and the skills I acquired at the time. But now I've upgraded my program, and so it's really nice when you sit back and realize, revolving back to the first question of how I've been, like the meetup, looking back at all the hard work. It's been 5 years, and seeing people unite for genuine reasons without, and finding their tribe, like you said, you felt the first time you went to an event. It's really satisfying. It takes time, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. You've done an amazing job. Kudos to you.
I kind of feel bad that this podcast is talking about me, but
listen, I'm asking the questions that people want to know.
Oh.
People want to know about you.
Oh, really? So
yes,
we have a
What
couple
do you think we're on here?
So ask me another question.
Now you put me on the spot.
Yes.
Well, we talked about what you've been up to and what you're looking to do. Is there anything that you'd really want to do or kind of bring to the community that you haven't yet, but you're kind of scared to take that plunge, but you've been thinking about it?
A clothing line. I want to bring a clothing line out and a YouTube series. Those two things.
Well, listen, I would be your first customer, because every time you make a dress, I'm like, I want it. I want it. Yeah, so I'm waiting for that clothing line.
But the thing is, it's just like, it's all about, finances at first and starting it up. And I want to do.
Yeah, and finding the time, like we were saying earlier, too. All of those things take time.
It's not only the time, because I feel like for that, if I had the money, I would do it right away. But it's also because I want it to be okay. When you see like a repro company, a reproduction vintage, like
Mm-hmm.
Pinup Girl, I'm just gonna. Well, there's a lot of them, and the one thing that I really dislike about it, but you can't get mad at, is the price, because they're all custom pieces or custom fabrics. So I like my ideal, and with every event that I do, if you notice, it's either free or really cheap, because I want everyone to be able to, like
Have
it.
access to it.
So I would love, if I create a line, to have something that will be not expensive, but also covers the cost of everything. And I know you can't have the best of both worlds, but I'm really, that's something I've been working on and trying to figure out, because I really feel like it should be affordable to everyone. And I know that sounds so like beauty pageant answery, but I've been in
But
that
it's
tough
true.
position that I couldn't afford a pinup girl dress, and even if I go on Poshmark, or if you're starting out, you don't have money, or they get more expensive, like those Target dresses that were like trending, and now somebody is selling them on Poshmark for triple the price.
Yeah.
And then I run into the struggle of, being plus size and vintage, and they're rare, so I understand that the cost is more, but I can't afford it, and then run the risk that it doesn't fit me, because it's like no return. So I literally have been trying to figure out different things, and that's really something that hopefully in the nearer future, like, I'll be able to present to all of you. And yeah, and I've had a lot of resources, so I'm working on that. And then on my YouTube, once I get my time like allocated correctly, because I have I run social media for the company. Then I also I have a side business of graphic designing under Pinup Miami. I do websites. I've also currently working. We're talking to one of my clients here at Arteluna Miami. And then I love hosting and bringing events together. So I'm just trying to figure there's time. I just need to figure how to put it together so I don't get burned out, and I can provide quality content for all you guys. Next question.
Listen, you're amazing because you do so much, and maybe people don't realize that you don't do this full time. Like you actually have a day job, which takes up most of your time. So it's amazing what you do in the time that you have after work. Like sometimes I wonder, does she sleep? Does she have time to do anything else?
Sometimes I don't sleep. That's why I have, What are other burning questions? Do you have any burning questions?
See, you put me on the spot.
I should be careful if I ask these questions. I might get a question I don't want to answer.
Well, how do you see, like, we talked a little bit about COVID and some of the concerns that we have, and like trying to get back into the real world. What do you think is COVID gonna be like something of the past, or do you think it's gonna change like the way we do things going forward, going to events and different things? Like I've already seen ads for like different concerts, singers that are touring and stuff like that, and I get like a little nervous thinking about like going to big events like that. Like, do you think it's gonna pass? This moment will pass, or is it just come?
I think it's gonna pass, but I don't think it's gonna pass quickly. At least
it's gonna take
everywhere. Time. Because and I honestly don't know the answer. Like you're asking, and I'm trying to think. But the truth is, like, it's so awkward. It's like that awkward stage. Like nobody knows. Yeah. Even if I had Dr. Fauci on here, like I feel like, I don't know. He wouldn't give us a straight answer.
It's true. It's one of those things. It's kind of like the unknown because we've never been through this before. So it's something new.
You said Into the Unknown, and I just thought of Elsa.
Elsa, I did too. I was thinking, we went back to Elsa.
I got distracted when you said Into the Unknown, and I'm like, Into the Unknown.
Listen, I am not ashamed to say that I love the music in Frozen 2. I absolutely loved it.
I liked it too. I don't know the words. I just know Into the Unknown because everyone kept singing it everywhere. You know. Oh, that's something else I would like to do is get into music. But that's another story for another day. Next question.
When are we getting into music? Because I do love when you sing.
Only my close people have heard me sing. And like I secretly wish like I wasn't shy when I was small. These are regrets. I mean, but it's never too late, I guess. That's what somebody would say. I used to want to always be on Broadway and sing. And I was in musical theater. But then, you know, life, I don't know, for me, I had this phase that I was super shy, felt like I wasn't worthy. And it sounds dumb to say it now, but when you look back, I mean, if I was there, my little self, that's how I would have felt. So I don't know, but I don't have any answers for when I'm gonna make my musical debut. All right, time for two more questions. What do you give to
somebody that's like starting out and kind of starting to work on like their side hustle or something that they're passionate about, but they're kind of scared and don't know how to proceed? Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yes, go to YouTube and Reddit. Serious. So if you have a passion in making resin jewelry, you know, watch YouTube videos. But don't buy anything until you watch videos, make a list, you know, like for example, the process for this podcast. I watched a lot of people doing podcasts, but it was hard to find people like showing how to do a podcast. And the people that did were super expensive equipment. And I was like, that's not my budget. I'm like low key broke. Well, not low key, but you know. So what I did was I saw a lot of videos, blogs on Reddit. You know, a lot of people don't use Reddit, but Reddit is really good resource to like look up things, find alternative ways of like doing things and selling products. So if you're in e-commerce and you have something, like create a Reddit board. And Reddit is organic. Look, I'm side. Reddit is so organic that like if somebody were to type in Google, that would be one of the top searches. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, so what I would do is I researched a lot of podcasting stuff and equipment, and then I found the alternative for like a cheaper version, but nobody had it. Maybe I should do a video one day if people are interested in how to start a podcast.
Yeah, that would be great.
Budget friendly way, because that was so hard. I literally just found, and of course I don't have a podcasting mic, but I have one of these because they look cooler. It's one of these.
But I like that one.
Yeah, and the quality sounds good, and I learned how to edit. I mean, other mics you could hear the quality. That's the ones that you see the ASMR, and they're like, you know, they pick up everything,
and they like crunch or do whatever.
So yeah, but yeah, I have a lot of knowledge that I love sharing. There's a couple of, I'm gonna say, clients that come to me and they ask for advice when it comes to e-commerce, social media.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, that's another side hustle of mine, is teaching people, because I do have resources from going from manufacturing to my own to e-commerce. So I'm like I have a lot of things up in here. It's yellow because it's a bright idea in there somewhere.
I like that. That should be your motto. It's yellow because it's a bright idea.
There's a bright idea in there somewhere, in there.
But you know, I think a lot of people are very like territorial with their knowledge, and they don't give you, they might give you like a little snippet, but they don't really share a lot of their knowledge with you. You encounter people like that. Like I've encountered people like that in my workplace. I've encountered people like that, you know, out in the world. Even friends, well, they'll tell you, or they'll tell you, oh, I don't have a recipe for that, but I put this, and that. And they don't really give you like the full thing kind of thing. And you've always been very open and sharing. So that's something that I really appreciate.
Even with the meetups, I'm very open, and I teach the girls what to do. If they don't know how to do graphics, I do their own flyers. If they want to do it, they do it. I'm an open book, because how I see it is, let's use an example for a workplace. You say your job, like some people don't say what they're doing or whatever, or how to do things, because they want to be the only ones to do it and have job security. Well, matter of fact, that really makes things worse for yourself.
Of course. No one can help you.
No one can help you. You're stuck. the company shouldn't allow it, because that way they're not going to be running efficiently. Even with Pin South Florida and the other meetups, if I don't teach them what I'm doing, and I'm scared of them learning my secrets of hosting an event, they're not going to be successful. And then at the end, it's all going to fail. I'm very open because I feel like I'm helping out in the growth. And I like to see people succeed. Even like, for yourself, you had products and you wanted to sell your art, and I gave you, I like to think that I helped you in finding other venues to make revenue.
Of course you have.
In creating in merchandise. So I could keep that all to myself, but I'm not using that, and I am using it though, but it doesn't hurt me to tell you how I'm doing it. And you'll keep coming back for more advice. So if you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube, if you ever have any questions on e-commerce, marketing, social media, podcasting, reach out to me or text me. I like getting texts because I could get to you right away if I'm available. So,
And what's the text message line?
1-833-4A-PINUP.
A little shameless plug.
I love that number. It was one of my dreams to have like a phone number with a cool name on it, like, because I used to love the commercials. Well, if you speak Spanish, you'll know this commercial if you're from South Florida, but 1-800-226-2727. Like,
that's right.
It doesn't have words to it, but it's so catchy. Like, I'm sure everyone knows. My God, right now I can't think of another phone number, but I wanted something catchy too, because why not? YOLO. They're called vanity phone numbers, but 1-833-4A-PINUP, and it sounds cool too, because you could call me up. You could call too, but I don't answer unknown call. That's on my own cell phone. I love talking to people, getting phone calls. Anybody would know that calls me. But when it's a stranger, I don't answer. So for the hotline, like, I could get phone calls, but trust me, I won't be picking it up unless you leave a message or text me.
So now you know, folks.
Now you know. Text message, you get an answer like this. A phone call, you get a text saying, "Hey, text me. What do you need?" Yeah. But yeah, I hope I answered some open questions for you, and
I think you did. We got to know a little bit more about Miss Pinup Miami.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you see the humidity of the storm that is coming. Or
by the way, completely off topic. Now that you did this, I've been the whole time I've been looking at you, and I'm like, I really love what she did with her hair today, because it looks like a short do, but I know it's not. It looks really pretty.
When I woke up this morning, I brushed out my curls. This is day 4 hair.
Amazing.
And I still had the waves in it. It looked much nicer in the morning. And then I just rolled it in and like pinned it so it looks like a faux bob. Because I knew it was gonna be humid today and hot, so I didn't want it in my face, but I also wanted to look presentable. And the frizz got in the way. But thank you.
It doesn't look frizzy at all. It looks super cute.
Hi, Vivian. It's always such a pleasure to have you on here. I'm glad you asked questions. I answered, and
I was being nosy today.
Yeah, I know. I felt like I was really, I'm happy that you asked these questions, because I hate talking about myself. And that's why most of the stuff I do is talking about the person on the other side. And
well, we flipped the switch. It was time.
Flipped it up. No, and it's really nice because I really do want to connect more with you all that are listening. And especially when I open up, I do get a lot of messages and texts, and it really, I do enjoy getting them and listening and getting your feedback. And if you relate or not, or if you just want to say a comment on the episode, truly appreciate it. But thank you, Vivian, so much.
Thank you for having me. I feel very I am at home because we're doing this virtually, but I feel very at home on this platform talking with you.
I got to have you back in my studio.
Yes, that'll be fun.
You were one of the first guests that had to come.
I was the first guest.
Oh, yes, you were the first guest.
Yes.
Because you had to be in person because I didn't know how to work anything. I thank you all for joining in, and the next couple of weeks, the guests, I'm slowly lining people back up. So I'll have an episode, probably a solo episode for now, but I'll be back with guests again soon. If you have any recommendation on any guests, I'm always willing and open to listening. Just send me a text, like we said, at 1-833-48-PINUP. Now I'm getting repetitive. But thank you all. I hope you guys stay safe and wear your mask if you want. Wear your mask if you're vaccinated. Don't wear it if you're vaccinated. It's up to you, but for real, be safe. Thank you guys and have a wonderful week.